All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the King George County School Board regular meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led today by our ROTC cadets, followed by a moment of silence.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you. All right, we will begin this evening with recognition. We will begin with Miss Belinda Cameron and our Health Occupation Students of America. Ms. Cameron?
Yes. Good evening. As you said, I am Belinda Cameron, and I'm the nurse aide teacher and proud sponsor of our Health Occupation Students of America chapter here at King George High School. But first, I'd just like to take one moment and thank community partners. We could not make it without them. Dr. Richard Cottrell and Associates, Moore Dentistry, and New Heights Pediatrics. The donations of these healthcare partners help us keep the costs of our conferences and competitions affordable to all of our students. I'd also just like to give a little shout out to Heritage Hall. Without their community partnership, we would not be able to be completing our clinical hours for our nurse aid program. And we just had our first clinical day today. That's why you see some of us still in scrubs, but it was very successful, and we're very thankful to have these community partners. This year, I am very proud to announce that we had 9 students compete in 15 events for our virtual Virginia State Leadership Conference that was held in March. I'd like to recognize some of the students that weren't able to be here tonight. Reagan Lumpkin competed in Health Careers Photography. Haley Comfort in Medical Terminology, First Aid and CPR. Azure Kornegg in Pathophysiology and Nurse Aid. Elizabeth Richard in Medical Terminology and Behavioral Science. Camille Haskins in Pathophysiology. Yating Situ in Medical Terminology. And then I have 3 ladies behind me, hopefully, yes, that I would like to give some special recognition to tonight. The first one is Taylor Mayros. She is actually one of our co-presidents. This is her 3rd year competing with HOSA, and she competed in epidemiology and pharmacology. She moves on to our international competition this summer in pharmacology, and I'd like her just to tell you a little bit about her event.
So pharmacology provides the HOSA members with the opportunity to gain knowledge and skills regarding the area of healthcare, regarding the concern of the use, effects, and all-around mode of drugs on the body. And the event itself consisted of 100 multiple choice questions and then 1 tiebreaker essay question.
All right, congratulations, Taylor. I have a certificate for her. So, all right, we wish her well in our international this summer. Next, I have Aubrey Ann Toms, and this is her 1st year competing with HOSA. She competed in some very interesting categories, I think. The first was extemporaneous writing, and then the second one was research, persuasive writing, and speaking. And Aubrey Ann moves on to internationals in her research, persuasive writing, and speaking. So Aubrey Ann, tell them a little bit about your events.
Hi, my research, persuasive, and writing and speaking event, it was basically writing a 4-page essay on a topic of my choice, and it has a general topic of, in my case, it was whether or not humans needed technology to survive, and I chose to write my essay on 3D printed prosthetics, and it was just a 4-page essay. And along with it, I had to record a video of me talking about my essay, my topic.
All right, and congratulations to Aubrey Ann, and we wish her well as well. There you go. Certainly. And last but not least, I bring before you again Shaylyn Hampton. She competed in several events, but one was with her partner Haley Comfort, who they were a team that competed in first aid and CPR for the second year. But Shaylyn competed in life support skills, and I'm proud to say that for the second year in a row, she took first place in the state and again moves on to our international competition this summer. So Shaylyn.
So basically, if you haven't heard me speak before, the life support skills and the CPR events are basically, they consist of like a 50-question test and 1 to 2 essay tiebreaker questions at the end, basically covering the basics of, first aid, general BLS, CPR, and the adult and pediatric chains of survival. Yes, I did take first place in life support skills for my second year in a row, and I took first place at the international conference last year. And me and Haley Comfort took 5th place in the CPR first aid event.
Yep, so congratulations, Shaylyn. As you can tell, I'm very proud of our HOSA members. They have certainly risen to the challenges that they faced this year in the virtual environment. And I'm looking forward to coming back in August and reporting on their accomplishments this summer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron, and congratulations to the 3 of you for your very impressive areas of expertise. All right, so next up we have our Major Grant Callahan here to recognize the ROTC scholarship.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Benson. Thanks for the opportunity to come tonight to give a quick presentation. ROTC scholarship is up there. That is the primary, the first student that I do want to recognize, but I was able to squeeze in 3 other students to highlight them as well. It's certainly that time of year, right? April, seniors have made decisions. Seniors are making decisions. Offers are coming in for scholarships and whatnot. So that's what we have. First one, ROTC scholarship, Carter Wasser, is a few weeks ago, the article in the paper about the Naval Academy. If you recall in that article, I made the comment about those students at the Naval Academy are equivalent to blue chip athletes. They're equivalent to D1 athletes that get full ride scholarships to Alabama, to play football at Alabama, to play softball at Tennessee. You name the sport, you name it. Either way, that's my analogy that I made, or my comparison that I made. ROTC scholarship, just pick a different school. It's really the same comparison. ROTC scholarship, there's many variations, but the full ROTC scholarship that covers everything is what Carter Wasser competed for and did receive, and it's a really darn big deal. The other 3 are also very important as well, and we do want to recognize them. I have a cadet who you'll hear from in a second for going into the military. I have a cadet going to the Merchant Marine Academy, and we have another cadet going down to Florida to eventually fly. So I'm going to bring those students up and let them just kind of talk one by one and let them know or highlight to you, what their plans are, and then certainly open to any questions. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Carter Wasser, and I was appointed to go to Virginia Military Institute in the fall to study civil engineering. I also received the National Army ROTC scholarship for 4 years of full tuition.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Hello, my name is Chloe Prenzik, and I'm going to be attending Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona, Florida, and I'm going to be majoring in aeronautical science to become a pilot. And although I'm not going into the military, I'm still really glad that I did NJROTC because I feel like it gave me a lot of great experiences and a lot of good skills that I'm going to carry through my life with me. So,
congratulations, Chloe.
I'm Jackson Lusk. I've been appointed to the United States Merchant Marine Academy. I intend to go there, graduate, and compete to be in the top of my class to become a naval aviator in the Navy.
Awesome. Good luck.
I'm Cameron Walker, and I'm going to the Air Force, and I want to become a physical therapist because I like helping people, and ROTT has helped me a lot by showing my grit and being responsible. And I'm thankful for this program and all the people who helped me. That's it.
Thank you.
Just one quick final comment, if I can. This is probably Sergeant Major and I's last, I would assume, appearance at a school board meeting, but you never know. There could be more. So I do want to take a quick second and go completely off script, and hopefully I won't get in trouble for it. But I do want to highlight Sergeant Major Frank, as I would assume most, if not all of you know, he is retiring after this school year. 25 years at King George High School, 25 years helping lead this program and make some really great citizens. So I just want to take a quick second to highlight him. Thank you for your time, and I know I'll certainly hear about that tomorrow from him. So, or probably this evening. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major Callahan. Thank you to Major Frank for your service, and congratulations to all of you on your upcoming endeavors, and good luck. We look to reading about you in the newspaper as well. So. All right, and next up we have the PTA Outstanding Educator Spotlights. Ms. Rinko.
Chairwoman Gonzalez, fellow board members, Dr. Benson, tonight I come wearing my hat of president of the King George County Council of PTAs. It is my privilege, and I hope your pleasure, to share with you words from parents supporting our view that all KGCS educators truly deserve the descriptor of outstanding educator this extraordinary school year. I have so many to share. This is the first of 3 presentations. Mrs. Brackbill has been absolutely amazing this year. She is flexible and patient. She understands that all kids do not learn the same, especially in the virtual environment. She deserves this recognition for going above and beyond her duties as a teacher. She is one of those teachers that has and will change lives. My son's favorite teacher of all time. Mrs. LaBelle is a wonderful teacher. She has diligently shown our daughter that she cares about her emotional well-being as much as her academic learning. She has worked tirelessly to make virtual instruction as engaging as possible. She helps her students to see that they can meet and exceed any expectation that they set for themselves. Mr. Monroe encourages student activity by making sure all students in the building and at home have academic and social time, whether it's through recess or a play break at home. He attends classroom lessons virtually and encourages all of the young scholars to do their best. He recognizes all staff, teachers, paras, custodial staff, maintenance, cafeteria, support staff, office staff, for the hard work being done to meet the needs of all students. He is encouraging and positive. Mrs. Catlett is a phenomenal teacher who meets and exceeds all the standards for an outstanding educator. We have seen her at school go the extra mile with activities such as the Valentine drive-through, which meant a lot to my student. It is not uncommon to receive emails from her on Saturdays and days off. Her positive impact is evident in the virtual classroom as well. If she notices a student is upset, she checks on him or her and attempts to help. What I appreciate most is her time. She teaches half of the class in the morning. She teaches the other half in the afternoon, and then she does reading groups. This innovative teaching technique allows for more individual attention for each student, something my student loves. But this technique is also very time consuming. Ms. Catlett is an incredible educator who is appreciated more than she could ever know. Mrs. Muth has been absolutely amazing this year with my son. Being virtual was quite a transition for everyone, but she has been amazingly patient with him when he freaks out because he can't log on to something or find a paper on his end. She is great at communicating with parents and letting them know how their student is doing. Mrs. Tritle has been amazing this year with my son. She went above and beyond while they were virtual, delivering needed classwork to the house each week. She made virtual fun for the students. She has excellent communication with parents. I have never not known what is going on or what will be going on in the future. My son absolutely loves her and this school year. Mrs. Stout. Mrs. Stout has been an amazing teacher to my son this year. My concerns about virtual learning were quickly diminished by her constant communication, quick responses, and reassurance. Because I was able to work from home most days, I could hear her class in session. Her classroom management is top notch. She commands the students' attention and respect. Not for 1 second do I feel like my son missed out on his second grade year. Mrs. Strauss has gone above and beyond this year, not only in teaching both of my kids in this crazy virtual world, she's also continued to support and encourage my son to reach his full potential in DECA. She and her DECA students also helped support many local businesses when they were struggling due to COVID because it was time to pay it forward for all the support these businesses has given to our schools over the years. She's been one of the most responsive and helpful teachers during virtual learning. I can't say enough about the amazing teacher and advisor. She has truly been a bright light for our family in this trying time, and we will forever be grateful. Mrs. Erickson has had a great impact on my daughter. She is more than a grade behind, or was more than a grade behind in her reading. Mrs. Erickson has given her the confidence and tools needed to be a better reader. Mrs. Erickson continues to support her, even though she isn't even in her class anymore. We are indebted to Mrs. Erickson and are so grateful for her loving, caring, and dedicated heart. My daughter's reading progress over the last year has been greatly influenced by Mrs. Erickson and her willingness to go above and beyond as an educator. Mrs. Kate Jones is the lead for the 3rd grade. And if you've talked to anyone in the 3rd grade this year, they will tell you 3rd grade has rocked virtual learning. It is evident that she loves her students. She engages with them about their families, their pets, their extracurricular activities, and so much more. She has made it easy to be a parent, helping their child from home during this tough year of virtual learning. My kids have learned to be independent and responsible for logging on, completing their work, and reaching out for help from their teacher if needed. Mrs. Sierra Huber has always helped parents and students stay informed about what the school is doing and what my kid is not doing. She offers her time to help, even if it is not her subject. Ms. Sanders took each obstacle and helped create opportunity. She was kind and fair and expectant of her students. Her demeanor made a huge difference between being an apathetic student and one that cared to achieve more and learn more. Her manner brought out forgiveness in my son, and that helped him achieve where he was about to struggle. And lastly, from a student, band teacher Mr. Kevin Cheatham has gone above and beyond, guiding us to success, making class fun, and ultimately creating a family. This is amazing, especially considering that many of us have never even met each other in person. Mr. Kevin Cheatham has done so much for the band class in helping us to grow as music players. Not only that, but he's helped us to grow as people. At the end of every class, we say our goodbye. Be kind to each other, it's really important. Then we high-five the camera and we leave the meet. This leaves a lasting impression of happiness. These kinds of interactions with people are needed, and Mr. Cheatham does this every day. He is incredibly wonderful and amazing. And this school board members concludes our first edition of King George County Council's of PTA's Outstanding Educator Spotlights. To all King George County school educators, thank you for your dedication, your perseverance, and the impacts that you made this school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Franco. Ms. Franco, before you take a seat, do we have any public comment? Oh, no public comment. Okay. Mr. Vance, do we have any public comment online? One. Okay. All right. So for those of you with us online this evening for public comment, please state your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. I will give you notice when you have 30 seconds remaining.
All right, good evening. Can I get a mic check, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Benson, ladies and gentlemen of the school board, and other parents. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is William Windus, and my wife and I have 4 kids in King George County Schools between kindergarten and 8th grade. And after hearing about what the superintendent said at the last meeting, and that the board stated that they did not need to vote about returning to full open in August, I was concerned that what was said or what was not said might be misinterpreted. So I sent an email to the board asking what I thought was a simple, straightforward question, which was not well received. And that's okay, because communication is hard, and when it's not in person, it's even harder. So that's okay. The feedback I got back, which I won't quote, ranged, but it was clear that there was deference to the governor's emergency order. To be clear, my concern is that the board will not open our schools fully if the governor's state of emergency is still in effect. Despite if the governor says verbally that he wants our kids back in school. But here's the thing. It's my understanding that the governor is saying that he wants kids back in school while he still has an emergency order in effect. So my concern is that we have a catch-22. There's board members that don't want to open because there's an emergency order in place, but the governor is saying that it's up to the districts to make the decision of whether to open. So for everyone's benefit, I respectfully request for full transparency on the conditions required to open our schools fully, whether that's next week, next month, next school year. I just want to be crystal clear, and I want myself, my wife, and other parents in this district to understand that. And if you're going to defer to the governor, that's fine. But does the emergency order need to be fully rescinded, or is the governor stating that he wants our children in school while other restrictions remain in place? Is that good enough to open our schools? Finally, when you make these decisions, I ask that you not just consider COVID, that you consider the bigger picture. Because the bigger picture is this: there are other factors impacting our children. The mental health of our children is being impacted severely. And it's not just medical, that from what I can tell, COVID is not a huge concern for our children, but our mental health, our children's mental health is being severely impacted. And I ask you to consider that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Windus. Mr. Vance, does that conclude our online comment? Good. Okay. Thank you. All right. So next, do we have any changes to the agenda? So I would like to propose that we remove the February 22nd, 2021 regular meeting minutes from the consent agenda to bring back after a few changes are made. Do we have a motion to approve or to remove the February 22nd meetings from the consent agenda?
What are the changes?
So the changes are a change to the amended motion on page 2 such that it would state a request to assess, not access, a K through 12 return. And the second was a clarification to my board comment during that meeting.
So one was a grammatical.
One was a grammatical and one was a board comment. Any motion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda minutes of March 8th, 2021.
So we're, sorry, just a motion to change the agenda to remove the February 22nd minutes.
If it's just a typo, is there any way we can just amend it with the typo?
Just changing it.
Just made a modification of the typo, cross it out.
Yes, I just did not. I would normally send it ahead of time and failed to do so. Was going to send the updates to Ms. Renko after this, so I can read my changes. Either way, we would need to
Change the agenda, not worry about it.
It would be simpler that way.
I move that we remove the minutes of the February 22, 2021 board meeting from the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
How about a discussion?
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, so I did have one question in regards to those. Mr. Collins had made a statement, or he had asked that on future agenda, considering the CARES Act, if we could have how the money would be allocated. And I believe that was done, but I was just wondering if there's a way that now, since we are proposing that we're opening schools in August, if we could possibly get that put back on the agenda to see if there's any other allocations that need to be made towards that funding.
So is that a
change?
Okay, so is that a discussion on the motion to remove the February 22nd minutes from the consent agenda, or a request to?
I think it's just a request to make sure that that gets put on there. That we
For this evening or in
For
a
future
future agenda?
agendas.
Okay, so we can certainly do that. That would seem to me to be separate from the motion on the table. All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Motion carries. So moving on to the consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended to include the March 8th, 2021 regular meeting minutes?
I move we approve the consent agenda as amended to include the March 8th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. It was talked about with Dr. Boyd about the other schools are doing teaching in virtual and in person concurrently, and I had requested if we could have a discussion on what kind of more technology would be required in order for us to do both, since we are going back to virtual learning and possibly in-person learning. Ms. Gallus, you had said that you would put that on a future meeting agenda, and I was just wondering if we could have an update on when we might think we could have that discussion item.
Okay, so I would ask the same question if that applies to the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yes, it does. Because I'm questioning the meeting minutes.
Okay, so it's not, we can certainly do that, but that won't affect the meeting minutes.
Yes, it affects the meeting minutes because I'm questioning about the meeting minutes. So I'm questioning if we are going to follow through on the meeting minutes. If there's a time or any planning to follow through on what the meeting minutes state. Otherwise, I would not approve the meeting minutes if we don't have any plan in place to put that on the future agenda.
Okay, so a future agenda item does not change the minutes.
If we're not going to follow through on the minutes, then I would not approve the minutes. So my question or my comment is, are we going to follow through on what the minutes state? And if so, when can we expect that?
Okay, yes, we can follow through with what the minutes state. So you would like to see a discussion about the technology, the potential technology limitations as pertains to concurrent instruction, correct, at the high school?
Correct.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Collins.
Call the question.
Certainly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right. Moving on to our action items for the evening. Dr. Benson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Before you this evening, the first item is our annual application to apply for funding through Title VI, Part B. This is our annual application on behalf of our students with special needs. This allows us to access funds to support instructionally and from the supply and programmatically our students' needs. So we appreciate your consideration. This was presented last time as a discussion item. We appreciate your consideration and your approval of our application, essentially asserting that if we receive, which we expect to receive since we receive this funding annually, it'll be spent, the board assures it will be spent within the guidelines provided through the grant.
Dr. Benson, is there anyone here to ask questions to?
I think Ms. Bush is here, the supervisor of special education.
Mr. Collins, would we like to first make a motion on our action item and then follow through with discussion?
Well, okay.
Do we have a motion to approve the special education annual plan Part B flow through application?
I move that we approve the special education annual plan Part B flow through application for this year. Second.
Okay. Mr. Collins, discussion? Questions?
So Dr. Benson, can we get, yes, I understand it. We're in discussion. Okay. The reason why I wanted to bring a special education director forward because I understand from Facebook that she has received her doctorate degree, and I'd like to offer her congratulations on that matter. That was my question.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Bush.
So it looks
Dr.
like you
Bush.
answered all the questions, Ms. Bush.
Thank you for entertaining
Dr. Bush.
me.
Very lengthy
Chair.
paper.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Questions?
That was
All right, congratulations again. That's a major accomplishment. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Moving on to the Carl Perkins grant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, the Carl Perkins grant, very similar, is another source of federal funding we receive annually. That application was placed before the board for your consideration last meeting, and we appreciate your consideration in approving our application so that we can access federal funding to support our career technology and education programs and our students who participate in those programs, such as the fabulous HOSA and NJROTC students who were here this evening. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Dr. Benson. Do we have a motion to approve the Carl Perkins grant?
I move that we approve the Carl Perkins grant as presented as a discussion item.
second.
at our last meeting.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Moving on to our policy manual updates.
Can we do them all as one?
We can, unless there is a discussion to change that. Do we have a motion to approve the policy manual updates AC, BBA, BBFA, BDD, CBA, CLA, DJ, DJF, EB, and GCBC-R?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Moving on to our discussion items for the evening. So Dr. Benson, our authorization of signature in absence of the superintendent.
Thank you. Second to catch up with you. Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the board. Each year we, the Department of Education for Virginia asks that this board approve authorization of persons to sign VDOE reports and documents in the case of my absence. So I'd ask that the board approve Ms. Christine Hill and Ms. Elizabeth Yazierski as our designees for signature in the absence of myself for the period of July 1, 2021 through the end of June 30, 2022.
All right. Any discussion, questions for Dr. Benson? All right. Next, we have our policy manual updates for discussion. So we can start with the first one. Any questions or discussion on EBCB safety drills? Or GCN, evaluation of professional staff? GCPD, professional staff discipline? Actually, I'm sorry, I had a question on safety drills. I'll back up for a second. Dr. Benson, I had a question on page 78. It said that pre-K, or there was a change to it that said that was underlined, that said that pre-K and K students are exempt from lockdown drills within the first 20 days of the school year. I guess, how have our pre-K and kindergarten students participated in those to date? Is that something already in alignment with how we've been handling them, or is that a change?
They do. They participate in similar fashion, perhaps not on the same day, but similar fashion to our K through 12. Well, kindergarten obviously participates at the elementary school along with their classmates throughout the school.
Okay, including during the first, what did it say? The first 20 days?
I think this was 60 days. And the update, again, for all of these is simply just a matter of update from your Virginia School Boards Association to align with law. It is not, certainly we can't go any less than what's prescribed, but we can certainly exceed the minimum requirement, which it appears we do.
Okay, all right, understood. I'm sorry, I also had a question on the evaluation of professional staff. On page, it was page 80 in the packet. It said there was a section that was crossed out, I believe, that it says that it implies that if a teacher's performance is unsatisfactory during a probationary period, we're allowed to keep them. I assume that's the implication of that. I was wondering what that meant, or what that meant for us.
Well, it's simply, well, I don't know that it means nothing. It's simply, again, the edit that's being recommended to you then brings in line with existing statute. But the practical application is that if an employee is not performing satisfactorily, then we take steps to improve that employee's performance. If ultimately that's unsuccessful and we decide it's necessary, then we make recommendation to the school board to non-renew, to not bring that employee back.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I had the same question with, I guess it's A, probation dismissal that crossed out. I don't think that needs to be crossed out.
Where was that? The same policy?
G, C, G, D, A.
Which one?
The second page, a GCPD, it seems. The first page, I'm sorry. Is that correct, Mr. Collins? Okay, the very first paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to call Ms. Ewing, lawyer at the VSBA, and inquire as to why that's crossed out, if you'd like.
But it didn't, I don't think it needs to be crossed out.
Right, that's what I mean. I can clarify with her what the rationale was for it, so that you all can determine if you want to keep it or if it's something that you want to acquiesce to the VSBA's recommended edit.
I think that's actually an important part of that policy. The part that's crossed out says encompassing includes but is not limited to consistent failure to meet the endorsement requirements for the position or one or more unsatisfactory performance evaluations.
Okay, so we'll get some more information. Okay. I think I might have been wondering about that as well. All right. Okay, next up is policy IA, instructional goals and objectives. Any discussion? Okay, next up is IGAH, family life education. So I had a question about this one, Dr. Benson. And again, I know that these are updates put forth by VSBA. I only ask about my questions are intended to question how they affect us. So the update states that the family life education curricula is reviewed once every 7 years. I guess how often has it been reviewed to date, and if 7 years or when it gets reviewed, when would ours be up for review?
I can get the last official review. In fact, it was early in my tenure, but I'll double check the date of the last review and make sure that we have a plan for within 7 years should the board approve this in its recommended form.
Okay, thank you. All right, and last but not least, policy JEG, exclusions and exemptions from school attendance. Any questions? No. Okay. So from there, we will move on to our next discussion item, which are the VSBA bylaws workshop. So in our last meeting, Dr. Benson offered to contact VSBA and determine their availability for offering a workshop for the board to work through our bylaws, which we reviewed in draft form in a previous meeting. So the information that Dr. Benson received from VSBA was they had some availability. So for consideration is that the workshop would be held virtually. It would potentially last for 4 to 5 hours with a break in between. And the dates they had provided were, well, today is passed. The next was Tuesday, April 27th, Thursday, May 6th, Friday, May 7th, and Monday, May 17th. So I wanted to get consensus on which day worked for the board. So
I would like to ask what is the reasoning behind us having to have a mediator for us to discuss our bylaws?
So based on the last meeting, it seemed some questions on the bylaws, as it's a document that the entire board will be vested in. And so Dr. Benson's recommendation to seek to find out if VSBA would be available to help us work through our bylaws. It's a service they provide. I personally think it's a good idea.
So don't you think that would be beneficial, since the committee has put a lot of work and effort into these bylaws, that we first address the questions that you have to the committee and let them come back with that? And then we could possibly, I think we as a board could possibly come together and have a discussion without a mediator, and paying money and having something, 4 or 5 hours is a long time to discuss bylaws when we've got a committee that's already made a proposal.
So we had a consensus at the last meeting that we would appreciate Dr. Benson exploring the VSBA. I wouldn't use the word mediating, but assisting us in drafting these bylaws. And we all acknowledge that the committee did a lot of work and spent a lot of time. But the VSBA are professionals, and this is what they do, is work for school boards in the state of Virginia. And I think there were questions about some of the legalities of some of the bylaws that were in there. And if this is a document that we're going to adopt moving forward to govern us, I think it's prudent to be very careful in what those bylaws say. So I think that although the committee is very much recognized for doing a lot of good work, as I said, I think that it wouldn't hurt for us to have people who do this for a living to help us to draft them appropriately to be a governing document for this board. So we agreed that we would look into this, and Dr. Benson came back to us with some dates that were available, and I think we should pursue that.
So we agreed that we would look into it. I don't think that they gave a consensus that we all agreed that we would actually follow through with it. The VSBA is not, they are not experts in writing bylaws. When I contacted them, they were able to send me some bylaws from other districts, but I would not consider that they are experts in bylaws. Dr. Benson had also suggested that, we could get legal counsel to review the bylaws. And I'd also just like to point out that the bylaws are primarily from our policies and procedures that are recommended from the VSBA. They are from the Virginia state law. Also, a lot of the bylaws are taken from the bylaws that our King George Board of Supervisors and other districts have also instituted and approved previously. So there aren't any areas in there that are just kind of randomly thrown in on a whim. So if anything, I think that it would be the best interest in time and money for us to take any questions that we have back to the committee, let the committee answer those questions, and then have a further discussion for us in a work session, and have legal counsel actually approve or comment on those bylaws once they're completed.
So I don't think that anybody made comment that anything was thrown in there randomly on a whim, but I personally am in favor of having the VSBA facilitate the workshop for us to review the bylaws.
Any additional comments?
My blackouts are Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays,
Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So you could do a Friday, May 7th.
Friday or Wednesday.
Okay. They offered a Friday. Okay, so TC can do Fridays or Wednesdays.
What time of the day are we looking, morning or afternoon?
Morning.
I guess they said 4 to 5 hours. So
Morning,
I would assume morning, probably similar to our training session we had last fall, if I were to fathom a guess.
So what is the cost of that, Dr. Benson?
They're not specified.
What was the cost of the one that we did back in the fall?
I don't recollect. I can find that.
So the entire committee, we worked probably 4 to 6 hours on these bylaws. So I'm not sure why we would need another 4 or 5 hours as a board to discuss the bylaws. And
I can say that typically in her response, I think she stated that typically they would allow for 4 to 5 hours, but if the work could be expedited, they'd certainly do that.
So we have a budget, which we have not spent any money for conferences or trainings in the past year. So I'm not sure that's going to be cost prohibitive for us to do this.
Okay. Ms. Tolliver, do you have particular dates that do or do not work for you?
I'm available any of those dates. Friday, May 7th is fine.
Ms. Hawk, did you have any availabilities to offer?
I'm available any of those.
Okay, Ms. Pansier,
I cannot commit to any of those dates due to a personal situation that I'm currently dealing with.
Okay. All right.
So is the committee
Mr.
invited to
Collins?
that also?
Sorry, repeat that, please.
Is the committee coming to that also?
I'm sure they could be invited if they chose to participate. No, yes, Dr. Benson.
I think it would be appropriate to invite members of the committee to attend, since there clearly was a great deal of work and effort that went into this, and they do have background information to share.
Okay. So it sounds like Friday, May 7th works for most of the board. Would anyone be opposed to us scheduling something with VSBA for the 7th of May and inviting the committee members to attend?
As I stated earlier, I think that it's an unnecessary process to have some type of mediator go through our bylaws. I think that as a board, we should be professional enough to be able to handle these discussions and converse properly back to the committee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pansier. I tend to agree. However, I do believe there was the discussion surrounding the bylaws last week was perhaps fraught with a little bit of tension. And so I think having VSBA assist in the conversation certainly wouldn't be of detriment to the process.
I'm not sure there was tension in the conversation, but if that's how you feel, then that's how you should proceed.
So
okay.
I think we could do it ourselves, and but it appears that he outvoted, so May 7th would work for me.
There hasn't been a vote yet, Mr. Collins.
Well, I mean, just from here.
Okay, so
I'm not.
He doesn't need a formal.
Let's be reasonable. I can hear it.
So this was a discussion item, and I would like to highlight that last year when we had our training session to develop our board norms and protocol, I don't recall voting on that. I recall that the date was set up and we had a training session. I'm not sure why this would need to be any different. We have a great starting place in the draft that was put together by the committee. So if anything, we should perhaps be a leg up on where we would be had we not had the draft to begin with. So I personally don't see what the downfall is. Okay.
You also have to realize it is during the day, and a lot of the people on the committee work during the day, and you're gonna ask them to take a day off from work. I don't think that is fair and reasonable to ask them to do that.
We can certainly have the work session with VSBA and return that information back to the committee for further review after the fact if people cannot attend.
I agree, Ms. Tolliver.
Although, Madam Chair, in other circumstances, once the committee has submitted its information to the board certainly can go forward and say, thank you very much, committee, you've done a great job, and we can pursue the next step. So, and in many other circumstances, we've done that.
I agree. Okay. But without further objection, we will plan on, assuming it still works with VSBA, a workshop on Friday, May 7th, and we will invite the committee members. All right.
So for the last time we did this, they were pretty adamant that all the board members needed to be present. So I would just like for you to make sure that they understand that although that day is probably the only day that is a possibility that I can make, I cannot fully commit to that.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Ms. Spencer. All right, moving on to our information items. Do we have any committee reports?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I have one more discussion item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
For the
have the
board's
old
consideration. It's very brief, just regarding this year's calendar, and I bring this to the board because the board, by policy, is the body that approves calendar adjustments, even slight ones like this. We think it's better that this be brought to the board. But coming up on April 21st, we have a day that was scheduled as a teacher work day. Of course, that calendar was established prior to any of us knowing the changes that we've made to this calendar year. We would like to propose that April 21st be amended from a teacher workbook day to an asynchronous learning day for students in exchange for May 27th. May 27th is currently scheduled as a half day of school, which under normal circumstances would mean a half day of school. But because we have various in-person schedules, that proves problematic for May 27th. It also concludes at a time that would leave an imbalance of the final week of school. So all that said, we'd like the board to consider and ultimately approve a modification to our calendar that allows April 21st to be an asynchronous learning day and May 27th to be recognized as the teacher workday instead. That would give both groups, blue and gold, 1 day of school in the last week of school. It would also give us one additional day to work with families for the return of equipment and that type of thing as we prepare for summer and summer school. So we appreciate your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I appreciate the input I received from all of the principals and staff in formulating this recommendation.
Is there time to wait till the next meeting, or do you need a vote? Because that puts us at April, pretty close to the 21st.
You're correct, and we needed to bring it to you because April 21st is obviously around the corner.
So what do the teachers do on the asynchronous days? What are their responsibilities?
The teachers provide the learning plan, assignments. Some provide, it's really contextual. Some use that opportunity to reach out to individual students or smaller groups of students. It varies.
IP meetings, other kinds of meetings.
Any additional questions for Dr. Benson?
Excuse me?
Were there any additional questions for Dr. Benson on discussion item?
No, but I think we need to.
Agreed. Dr. Benson, I have a question. So April 21st currently is a Wednesday, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. So even though that's normally our Wednesdays, our asynchronous days, that one was going to be a holiday. So we were going to change that. Is that what we're saying? A student holiday. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So to Ms. Tolliver's point, was your preference that we voted on that this evening?
It would be, I think, so that we can communicate to families so that they can plan.
We don't have a meeting.
Understood.
I don't have the motion.
If you could just approve the amendments to the calendar as presented.
I move we approve the amendments to the calendar as presented for April 21st and May 27th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair vote. I asked for discussion. Okay. So I think that, sorry, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed. I was looking at an old agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to our information items. We have committee reports this evening. Ms. Pansiero, do you have any committee reports?
Not at this time.
Okay. Ms. Hawk?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Tolliver?
No.
Mr. Collins?
No.
No? Okay. I participated in the Title I Advisory Committee meeting, which took place virtually last Wednesday, April 7th. So the committee reviewed the family survey results for King George Elementary and Sealston Elementary. And in general, the feedback, as I recall it being last year, was very positive as well. They also provided some updates on the family engagement events. So Sealston held their spring event on April 28th from 1 to 6 p.m. in conjunction with the dinner pickup. King George Elementary is still deciding what their spring event will look like. And I would just add that I've in every meeting always impressed with teachers, but definitely thoroughly impressed by the creativity that teachers and staff have come up with for ideas for engaging students in this, rather unorthodox time. As an example, Miss Brittany Resto was talking about options she put together for children to pick their book fair books. She went through, provided a list, and put screenshots of all of the covers of the books into a PowerPoint slide so students could go through and look even though they weren't in a book fair. I just thought that was very creative and adding a personal touch to a less personal curbside event. So all that was good news. All right. I think that concludes our committee reports. So next we have our superintendent's report. Dr. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make mention, Ms. Rinko was nice enough to come and share the testimony from families about teachers who've been particularly and staff who've been particularly impactful. And I want to extend that appreciation to the PTAs in general, because these organizations support our schools year in and year out, both at the school level and the division level. They assist greatly in providing that parent engagement, such as the Title I events that you just mentioned, Ms. Gonzalez. So I appreciate Ms. Rinko, all of the leadership and all of the membership of the PTAs, PTSAs, I guess, as well, in supporting our schools and promoting that family engagement, particularly at a time when family engagement is so important to the success of our students. I also want to give a shout out. It was nice to see our spring sports out on the fields. I saw the kids trying out for baseball, I assume, or those players down there, and I'm assuming softball's down there as well as spring sports. But special shout out to our 7-0 Foxes football team for their Battlefield District Championship already secured, and their continued success this weekend as they travel to Monaco to bring home that regional championship. So congratulations, Coach, and all of our players. Quite an accomplishment, quite a season, and look forward to cheering on our Foxes this coming week. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Benson. All right, and moving on to board comment. Ms. Pansiera?
Yes. So it was nice seeing our HOSA and ROTC students and hear all about their accomplishments. I'm sure they had a few obstacles to overcome in comparison to past students. So hats off to our incredible staff for their commitment, leadership, and mentorship to these students. Major Franks, I know that you have been a pillar in our community and have left a huge impression on many students. I am certain that your presence will be felt for many years. Thank you for being a hero and being an instrumental part in King George County's future for generations past, present, and future. The PTA recognition was very heartwarming. Thank you, Ms. Rinko, for all that you do for supporting our schools and for sharing some positive news. I would like to repeat my request for discussion on the need of technology upgrades for concurrent teaching at the high school be placed on the agenda in the near future. And I also would like to request that we are provided with an update on the CARES funding allocation based on the anticipation of opening our schools 5 full days a week. The public comment brought up some good points that I would like to address further. At the last meeting, Dr. Benson stated that the intention was to open the schools full days, 5 days a week. And in my board comment, I expressed that I was pleased to hear that. However, I was cautious. And it was clear at that moment that the majority of the board members were aware that Dr. Benson was going to make that statement. However, I was completely surprised. This information was not shared with me prior to the meeting, and I also questioned whether a vote would be required in order to have that plan implemented, since we have had to vote on instructional plans since the pandemic and have offered both in-person and virtual. Dr. Benson noted that virtual would be offered, if nothing else, through Virtual Virginia. I believe the information portrayed that night was not clear as to the intent of the actions of the school board on how or when we return to in-person learning. I was not the only one who questioned that comment, as we received an email from a parent that stated, "I respectfully request a simple one-sentence response to this message, stating whether you support, based on the information that you have right now, a full opening of King George County schools in August of 2021 to 2022 school year." My response was simply, "Of course, I will be in favor of in-person." The parent requested that we as a board reply all. However, only 2 of us replied within a day or two to that parent directly, which prompted the parent to send another email requesting a response. The remaining 3 board members replied to all as requested, and I feel it is important that the entire community hear their response, as I feel is very insightful as to what reopening our schools for the 21-22 school year really means. The first board member's response as it relates to the opening of schools quotes, "I fully support a full-time 5-day-a-week reopening for all students in August, unless we are still under a state of emergency or the governor dictates differently or the COVID positivity rate continues to rise in King George," which I'm pretty certain that our positivity rate has been decreasing in the last several weeks, and our current indicators shows us clearly out of the red. The second school board member's response as it relates to the opening of schools, "I agree with board member number 1 in that we certainly expect schools to reopen for the next year in a typical manner, but we do not have a crystal ball nor divine insight as to what the circumstances will be in 4 months. We are doing our best to plan appropriately for the summer programs and the 21-22 school year. The budget will be authorized as it typically has been, and we will follow the recommendations of our governor and Dr. Lane. Virginia is still in a status of healthcare emergency, and we will follow the protocol necessary." The last board member's response was, "I am happy to speak with you about my sentiments regarding a return to school 5 days a week," and further went on to say, "I would also be happy to speak with you after a board meeting, should you care to join us in person and stick around afterwards." Then going on to say, "A few of my fellow board members and I, thinking that it is at least 3, right, talking about school board matters and therefore constituting a board meeting not available to the public, had a very engaging and productive conversation with a frustrated parent after one of our meetings a few weeks ago. I think both the parent and us board members learned a thing or two. I was unaware that our meetings continued after we had adjourned, but we'll make sure moving forward that I stick around. Of course, I may not be free of any wrongdoing myself, as I have been accused of slanderous comments referencing my opinion on the actions of the board. But there is one thing that I will stand firm on, and that is standing firm and fighting for the children of King George County to have a free and equitable education and giving their parents the choice to do what is best for their family. I have struggled the past day and a half after reading these messages, as it raises concerns about not only transparency within the board, but with the public. These statements and actions speak volumes as to the actions and lack of transparency that is happening during a time when we as a community need to come together and stand with each other and hold each other up, not play political games and tell the public what they want to hear, only to have an alternative motive behind it all. So Dr. Benson, I am requesting that you please further identify what you actually meant in your statement to opening schools for the 21-22 school year. What does that actually look like? Full details if we are still in a state of emergency. As Ms. Harris stated at the last time she was here, now is the time they need to start planning for next year. So what are they planning? What does the instructional plan look like? The time last year, we had no idea how long this pandemic would last, nor did we have nearly as much information about the virus or understanding as to how to combat it. We do now, and now is the time we need to start planning for a full 5-day instructional plan, not dependent on whether we are in a pandemic or not dependent on whether the governor has lifted the restrictions. I believe he has left those restrictions to each individual district to make that decision. I further want to voice my concern over the allocations of the CARES funding. If we are indeed planning on reopening the schools, even while still under the pandemic, then we should see funding for all those additional teachers we claim we need, along with the substitutes or facilitators that we also claim we need, even when the hybrid is in place. So I am certain there will be a request for even more if we go to full 5 days a week. Which I would like to also note that I have called and talked to schools in each of the surrounding districts of Spotsy, Stafford, and Fredericksburg, and they did not hire additional teachers to make their hybrid plan work, other than hiring moderators for those classes in which the teacher was virtual, but the students were in person. In conclusion, I believe that it is the best interest of our children, taxpayers, our constituents, and business owners of King George County that we have the staff brief us on their plan and we hold work sessions accordingly. That may mean every Monday as we did last year, or whatever we need to do. When a community is in a pandemic, the last thing we should worry is taxing staff of doing their job. The teachers are heroes and they have gone above and beyond. And if you talk to them, I would be certain the majority of them, there are a few who feel entitled, no doubt, that they would continue to work tirelessly to get the kids back in school. Whatever it takes, I have heard from them of many. That, my friends, is a true hero. That concludes my comment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pansiera. Ms. Hawk?
Yes, I'd like to say a very, very incomplete thank you to Sergeant Major Frank. He truly has been a wealth of knowledge, a contributor to the stability of this community and the growth of an amazing number of young people. He's been a role model. He's been a father figure. He's been an example of someone who does things the right way with honor. And I think we can't thank him enough for his contribution to this community. And, I hope that he will stay on in a consultant manner and give us more support and perhaps help us understand how we can further the depth and the strength of that program. I'd also like to say congratulations to Ms. Prunsick, Mr. Lusk, Mr. Walker, Ms. Walker, I'm sorry, Mr. Walker, the cadets who have demonstrated exactly what Sergeant Major has done for this community. They're a group of young, diverse people who have found in him a role model and have gotten so much breadth and depth from him. We have the beginnings of an engineer coming out of Embry-Riddle who hopes to fly. We have a merchant marine who will graduate and who will be successful, also hoping to fly. And we have a person who's going to be successful in the military to become a physical therapist. We can be very proud of these students and so very proud of this program. And I hope that Sergeant Major is around to see the long-term results of his activities. I want to say thank you, Ms. Rinko, for detailing the reasons that people are honoring teachers, because it does make a difference. There are days that many parents and grandparents have pulled hair out and been frustrated and said not nice things about teachers. I'm sure that happens. All I can say is that our teachers are doing their best. They're giving their all, whatever that is. And I think the pandemic has truly brought out our best and our worst selves in this best and worst of times. I did want to say that I attended a VSBA webinar done by Elizabeth Ewing on April 7th. The topic of it was the FOIA basics, the motions and related procedures for closed sessions. It was an hour session, middle of the day, very accessible to working folks. I brought copies of the notes that were provided, and I think it was well worth the time. There weren't any great awakenings, but it was a real awareness of what we can and cannot be doing in terms of motions within closed session. To Mr. Windus, I want to say a special thank you. I've certainly known Mr. Windus for quite some time and regard him as a very strong, energetic member of this community. We've worked at church together in community, and I do understand his need for specification of what we propose. I think, as Ms. Pansiera detailed in some of our responses back, that we are trying to commit to a full opening of 5 days a week for all of our students. And I'm certainly the one who did not have divine inspiration. And I'm truly hoping that our staff, led by Dr. Benson, can provide the basis of a plan that will continue to meet the requirements of health and safety and the academic standards as they are in place. We will do everything we can do to make sure we meet all of those standards. And at this point in time, that's all we can promise. So thank you, Dr. Benson.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Ms. Tolliver.
Echo what some of Ms. Hawk said. Sergeant Major has been a fixture here for 25 years in King George County High School ROTC program, and certainly we've had some remarkable results from that program. So thank you to him and happy retirement. We want to recognize the HOSA students. They are kind of the minority sometimes when we talk about some of our CTE programs. So I'm grateful that they were here. I'm thankful for Ms. Cameron and all the work she does with our CNAs and our health program. I'd also like to take off my school board hat for a second and put on my hat as the King George High School PTSA president, and thank Ms. Rinko, the county council, for their leadership for all of our PTAs in all of our schools. Very much appreciated. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tolliver. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank the HOSA folks for coming. That program was started within my tenure here, and it's proved to be successful. Sergeant Major exemplifies honor, pride, and dedication. And every year we see that through the students that come before us. We had several students here that showed exactly that tonight. But there are many other students that he has touched over the years that we know that he's steered them in the right direction. Sergeant Major doesn't stand up and wave his hands. Sergeant Major works in the background, and he's a rock of the school. He's a rock of this NJROTC, and we can only thank him for his 25 years of service and wish him well in his future endeavors. The ROTC students, as I already mentioned, are an example of Sergeant Major's work. We've been, since January, we've been talking about the VSBA, about the bylaws and so forth, Robert's rules. And I still can't believe that we're here today, 4 months later, and we're going to be doing a workshop for something that is our responsibility that it should have already been completed. As far as the Mr. Windus comments, I did return his I don't think I was one of the three that he spoke of, but I returned his email, and my email was about one sentence that said that we need to return back to school next year. It was not any hyphenation or any other thing. It was, we need to return to school. What, in my opinion, whether we have an emergency order in place or not, we have done what we needed to do to get the students in school. We need to go back 5 days a week. Any student wants to be online can do the virtual Virginia. We have that available to them. I'd like to congratulate the Foxes. I've been watching, and they've been doing great, and we wish them the best of luck. As the James Monroe District School Board member, I've spoke to many constituents, and I've had the opportunity in the last several months to go door to door and speak them. And I'm not going door to door for the particular reason of the school board, but the reason that every one of them brings up school, every single one of them. And I've only had one person, not just going door to door, but one person said they want to stay virtual. When we've had this discussion in the last year, I've had 2 other families that want to be virtual. The feel in the county, I think that it's pretty clear that they want to go back to school, and I don't think that we should put anything in their way where that's not going to happen.
Does that conclude your comment?
And I would also like to see on the agenda the technology updates and the CARES, how we're going to spend that money in a discussion period. That does end my comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins. All right, as for me, the downside of going last is I sound like a bit of a broken record, but I would also like to thank Ms. Cameron for coming this evening, representing the HOSA program, and congratulations to the 3 competitors that were announced this evening. Thank you to Major Callahan for recognizing our ROTC students this evening, and to again echo my colleagues' sentiments, thank you to Mr. Frank for your service to our students in our ROTC program. I was also thoroughly moved and very much enjoyed hearing the family feedback on our outstanding educators as presented by Ms. Franco. So that positive feedback and kind words, they were really heartwarming to hear, and that's only coming from me. I'm sure it means a lot to the teachers who I know have done amazing things this year. As for the prospect of returning our students to school full-time 5 days a week come next year, I most certainly am in support of such an objective. As the parent of a rising 2nd grader and kindergartner next year, I assure you that I want nothing more than my children to be in school full-time 5 days a week. I was not surprised to hear Dr. Benson announce such an objective previously, but I was certainly relieved. Like Ms. Hawk, I also do not really have any divine insight that tells me what things will look like in the fall, but I will most certainly be in 100% support of a return to school 5 days a week if that is in fact the recommendation of Dr. Benson and his staff at the time. And like Ms. Hawk, I also attended the VSBA training session, FOIA Basics, Motions and Related Procedures for closed sessions on Wednesday last week, and I agree it was a very succinct and very useful session. So that concludes my comments, and I think serves as what is probably an appropriate segue to go into closed session. So at this time, do we have a motion to go into closed meeting?
I'd like to make a motion pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3711.A One, for the purpose of discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignments, appointments, promotions, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We're now in closed session. You ready?
Oh, I did have.
Yeah, I have to give you that.
It's not.
Into open session.
Make a motion to return to open session and certify.
Want to finish the,
Yeah, pursuant to State Code 2.2.
Pursuant to State Code 2.2-3712.d, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was conveyed were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting of the public body.
Second is certified.
Certify.
certify. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in open session. Do we have a motion to approve the action resulting from closed meeting?
I'm going to approve the actual results from closed meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now adjourned.